Okay, Mayor Copeland, we can begin.
Okay, the meeting is called to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Here.
Dr. Estra,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Mr. Rue,
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here, please rise to the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our God, we're grateful for the opportunity to gather and to make decisions for the people of Springfield. Help us to do it well and help us to listen to each other well. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody want to approve the minutes?
So moved.
So
yes.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Clerk will proceed with first readings by title only.
Authorizing the law director to approve and settle a claim with Suzanne Benz for expenses incurred as a result of damage that occurred on her property located at 3586 Kingsgate Court on or about January 31st, 2021, and authorizing the director of finance to make payment to Suzanne Benz in the amount of $1,400 as full and final settlement for said damages. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a Cropland lease agreement 2021-2025 with Raven Farms LLC to lease 5 acres at 5721 Plattsburgh Road, of which 4.8 acres are tillable farmland. Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the consulting agreement with Urban Fast Forward Limited for the Springfield Engaged Neighborhood Planning Process Development Phase 2 to extend the completion date to October 15, 2021. Confirming and approving a development incentive agreement, single-family residential development with Christopher and Lisa Saunders to provide water services to real property outside the city limits.
Any questions or comments from commissioners on first readings?
Yes. I have a question on 225-18 regarding the Urban Fast Forward and the Springfield Engaged Neighborhood. I wanted to know, is there an implement date planned at this point for implementing the engagement neighborhood planning process?
Yeah, if Shannon just popped back up on the screen, if you want to talk about that and what this does and answer her question.
Sure. So the amendment that's before us extends the time for the completion of the phase 2 data collection and planning process. One of the things that we are working very hard on is to do implementation and action also while planning. So there is no implementation date. What we're gearing toward is having the full data analysis and engagement and planning document completed from Limestone all the way to Yellow Spring Street, Pleasant all the way down to Perrin, no later than October 15th. We have the phase 1 report that has been finished. We've started small steps on implementation within the phase 1 report, even though COVID has gotten in the way. And what we want by the end of October now is for the phase 2 report to be completed and both of the phases consolidated into one planning and implementation document. The implementation itself, Ms. Chilton, includes a lot of policy analysis that will be part of government action, but it also includes infrastructure action and other nonprofit partnering action. So some of the work that we've done so far has been working with the Gammon House on the street mural painting. That was something that we could do socially distanced in 2020. We are also working right now on some street work. I believe 2 weeks ago, Leslie McDermott kind of shared that we are working on cost for reconstruction and repaving of Piqua Place, Clark Street, and Oban Chain, all around the Gammon House. That is also a part of implementation within phase one. We continue to partner with 1159 South and other community organizations to carry out visions along Yellow Spring Street and working, very methodically through various opportunities as they arise, so that this document is a living document that is ongoing in implementation.
Thank you. Very good. A lot of progress being made.
Small steps.
Anyone else on first readings? Clerk, proceed with second readings.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a Cropland lease agreement 2021 to 2025 with Clem Farms Limited to lease 37.99 acres at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport, of which 34.89 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided by Clem Farms Limited from December 1st, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance.
So moved, Hester.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes, I would like to commend the city for, in fact, making these arrangements that are covered in several of the next ordinances, this and several of the next ordinances. Obviously, you need a lot of property to have an airport operational, but we're making use of that for farmland and thus keeping down the cost of us having to mow all of this, while at the same time providing income for the city and for the farmers. So I strongly support all of these resolutions. They make a lot of sense. I think it's a win-win for the city and the neighboring farmers. Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a Cropland lease agreement 2021 to 2025 with Jeremy and Taylor Runner Farm to lease approximately 579.04 acres at and near the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport in Clark County, Ohio, of which 530.5 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided by Jeremy and Taylor Renner Farm from December 1st, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance.
So moved, Hester.
Second, Rue.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a Cropland lease agreement 2021 to 2025 with Burner Farms to lease 308.758 acres in the vicinity of the city's water treatment plant, of which 235.754 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided from January 1, 2021 to the passage of this ordinance.
Move to adopt. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a Cropland lease agreement 2021 to 2025 with Clark's Farm Market LLC to lease 103.889 acres in the vicinity of the city's water treatment plant, of which 99.159 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided from January 1, 2021 to the passage of this ordinance.
So moved, Hester.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into an airport vegetation management agreement 2021-2025 with Jeffrey A. Goodbar to manage vegetation growth on 33.14 acres at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport, and confirming and approving services provided by Jeffrey A. Goodbar from December 1, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance.
So
Move to
moved.
adopt.
Sure.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes, I just have one question for our city manager. If there are folks that are interested in doing any of this, like with the vegetation or leasing property, who would they contact at the city of Springfield for information?
Yeah, actually, Mark, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I'd be happy to. If you are talking about cropland leasing, I would think that would go through our law department. If you're talking about providing services for the city of Springfield, you could contact our purchasing department at City Hall by calling the number 324-7300.
Thank you.
And our legal department is 937-324-7351.
All right. that
Anyone
answers-
else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
yes,
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes,
Mr. Rue,
yes,
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a development incentive agreement, single-family residential development with Rock Powers as power of attorney for Janice L. Powers to provide for sewer services to real property outside the city limits.
move to adopt.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
yes,
Mr. O'Neill,
yes,
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes,
Mr. Rue,
yes,
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the purchase of one tractor and one mount mulching mower for an amount not to exceed $240,603 from Steinke Tractor Sales Incorporated through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code.
so
Move to
moved.
adopt. Second,
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
yes,
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Mr. Rue,
yes,
Mr. O'Neill,
yes,
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
confirming purchases and the obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefore and declaring an emergency therein.
move to adopt,
second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
yes,
Mrs. Chilton,
yes,
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Mr. O'Neill,
yes,
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum aggregate principal sum of $843,600 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of constructing sidewalks, curbs, and gutters comprised in the 2021 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Program at various locations throughout the city and declaring an emergency therein.
move to adopt.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
I have a question here for our staff to talk about the 2021 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Program. And how's that going to work this year with our citizens?
Yes, Commissioners, pulled Chris Moore up, Service Director, and he can talk about the Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Program this year.
So the sidewalk curb and gutter program will work as it has historically, minus last year. Notices have went out to residents that have issues with their sidewalk, curb, or gutter. They will have a period of time to make those repairs themselves. If they choose not to make those repairs, then the city's contractor will come and make those repairs, and they will get a bill, and they can either pay it or it will be assessed to their taxes.
Thank you. And is there time when those bills went out? They have how long to make those repairs?
They, from the time they get the notice, they have roughly 30 days to get the process started of getting the work performed.
Thank you, Chris.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
yes,
Mr. O'Neill,
yes,
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Securing to the city of Springfield, Ohio, the benefits of the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Ohio State University for fiber connection at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to execute a second amendment to the joint use agreement between the city and the Clark State College and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Second, Estrop.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Uh,
Oh,
I was wondering if we might have an explanation of the Second Amendment, please.
Yes, Commissioners, I'll have Tom Franzen speak to that.
Hello, Commissioners. There, I'll turn my camera on, I guess. It won't let me start video, but I'll go ahead and respond. The Second Amendment was to allow use of Clark State's hangar by Lift Aircraft. That was a new company that arrived a couple of weeks ago. So this is just a housekeeping issue here that allows Clark State to be in compliance with their joint use agreement with us.
Good. Tom, my congratulations to you and Seth for all of the development that's going on out at the airport. I'm very pleased with the direction we're going, and I want to encourage you to continue down that path.
Thank you. Yeah, there's been a lot of hard work. Seth's doing a fantastic job out there, and certainly we have tremendous amount of partnership from around the state and here locally too that's helping getting that done. But thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to apply for an airport improvement program zero emissions vehicle grant through the Federal Aviation Administration to reimburse the city in the amount of $90,000 for costs related to one electric utility vehicle and one electric sedan vehicle that will be located at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport. Authorizing the city manager, director of finance, and law director to perform all acts and execute all documents considered necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said grant application and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estrop.
Oh, I'm
Second.
sorry. That actually, the dollar amount, if you notice on the change order, I eliminated the comment about the matching. It's actually 100,000 instead of 90. So I read that incorrect.
Okay. Clerk will call the roll.
I'm sorry, was there a motion? I missed writing it down.
I made the motion.
I second it.
Thank you. Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
And if I could, to clarify on that last motion, the grant amount is now 100,000 and the city's share has been eliminated. The 10,000 we were initially expected to pitch in. Is that correct? Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir,
Correct.
that's changed.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mhm. Authorizing the city manager to apply for a CARES Act airport grant through the Federal Aviation Administration to reimburse the city in the amount of $23,000 for costs related to combating the spread of COVID-19 virus at the Springfield-Beckley Municipal Airport. Authorizing the city manager, director of finance, and law director to perform all acts and execute all documents considered necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said grant application and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the acceptance of a donation from the Springfield Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association of a new rescue phone cellular response console valued at $1,495 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I think we need to thank those who have made the contribution. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
I was wondering,
Authorizing-
I'm sorry, I was wondering if perhaps Brian or Chief Graff could tell us about this rescue phone cellular response console. I'd like to know a little more about it.
Yes, I'll have Lee answer that. Thank you, Lee.
Afternoon, commissioners. Yeah, what this is this is increasing some of our technology. This is for our negotiators to do crisis negotiations in barricaded subject situations and any manner of things like that. The old technology is using what they call a throw phone, which is like a phone attached to a hard wire that goes in the house. Well, everybody has cell phones now. And what this device allows the negotiators to do is to sync up cell phones through the device so that they can record the conversations as they're having them, and also so that other persons, their partners that are working with them, can listen to the conversations. And it's very seamless with just about any kind of cell phone device. This is really a big jump in the technology that they've been using, and I would personally like to thank once again the Alumni Association for all the support that they've shown us and the citizens of Springfield, because these cost savings are always great. I mean, they're great things for the taxpayers, good thing for our citizens.
Thank you, Chief. And thanks again to the Alumni Association.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
I'm going to move on to the next ordinance, actually. Authorizing the replacement of a chiller at City Hall from Weibel Energy Systems for an amount not to exceed $117,800 through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance pursuant to the NCPA Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the tuck pointing project at the wastewater treatment plant from McDaniels Construction Corporation Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $224,080 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the acceptance of a donation from the Defense Logistics Agency of 8 Michelin XZL tires valued at $2,517.69 each, for a total value of $20,141.52, and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Mr. Estrop.
Yes, I'd like to know more about a tire that's worth $2,500.
These are the
Wow.
MRAP tires?
They must be awesome tires.
Yeah, I'll real quick and then I'll have Lee, but yes, this is for the MRAP vehicles that are used from our SWAT team. And we actually had 2 tires that were shot out as part of the incident that occurred up on Apollo. But I just want to emphasize, Captain Kranz and others in the police division have really taken advantage of these programs that exist out there. And as you can see, these are expensive tires, and to be able to go out and find a donation of 8 of these is just huge. And we've, as you know, have had several items that have come before you that we've been able to take advantage of these programs. So it's just a great, and Lee, I don't know if you want to follow up on anything of that, but.
I would just echo what Brian's saying. We try to be very responsible in our use with DLA to get items that we need and that will be used directly by the department. And obviously the cost savings here are very beneficial. And these tires aren't really available on the open market in any other format. So by having these spares, it allows us to kind of prepare for the future in case we need them.
Great. Good job.
Clerk will proceed.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Kennison Excavating Incorporated for the 2021 miscellaneous water service replacement project rebid for an amount not to exceed $1,028,460, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Move.
Estrop.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with A&B Asphalt Corporation for the 2021 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Program for an amount not to exceed $943,501.75, and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with A&B Asphalt Corporation for the 2021 PI paving project for an amount not to exceed $2,334,492.18, and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second,
Second.
Estrop.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
The next 2 items were added to the agenda. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a trade value agreement with Brown Equipment Company to document and memorialize the credit for the trade-in of one 2012 Ford F-450, and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Consenting to the appointment of Lauren Ware to the City Planning Board.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
yes,
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
yes,
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. That concludes our agenda. Are there other items that come before us from commissioners? Mr. Estrop.
Thank you, Mayor Copeland. I was talking with Health Commissioner Charlie Patterson last week, and he asked that we remind everyone while the vaccination is going well, and I know a number of commissioners have been involved in it. It's a well-run organization, but Charlie wanted me to remind everyone that they need to continue to wear masks, socially distance, and take other precautions as may be necessary. The pandemic is not over. We're making progress every day, but we need to continue to be safe and engage in those things that have helped us drive down the number of cases that we're having, but it is not over. So having said that, I wondered, Mr. Heck, how we're doing in terms of services. And then we have a pretty good sense of what's going on the south side, but I wanted an update on how Larry Dillon is doing on the Four Corners project.
Yes, commissioners. As far as our staffing is concerned, we're actually in a really good spot right now. We have very few numbers that are impacted or affected by COVID, which is a positive. We're better off than we were 2 weeks ago, so that's good. More people have become eligible for vaccination, which is also awesome. And I saw the governor just released today. He's expanding the program to certain ailments and so forth, starting this, I believe this Thursday, the 19th, this Friday, the 19th. And then on the 29th, actually opening it up to anyone 16 and older. So we're getting there as a state. We're getting the vaccine widely distributed, and pretty soon it'll be open to anybody that really wants to get vaccinated. Will have that opportunity to do that. And I'm excited, not only for us as a state, but I'm excited for our organization, because I know there's individuals that are anticipating their opportunity to get vaccinated and do their part and hopefully eradicating as much as we can this pandemic. And but agree with your statements on the mask, and we continue to have those same requirements throughout our building for our staff. Some changes that happened starting this past just yesterday, this Monday, we opened up the first floor of City Hall. That comprises our utility billing and our income tax division. And that is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So if you recall, when we were open for a period of time, it was limited hours. We decided that was counterintuitive because everybody was kind of stacking up on each other during those limited hours. And so we just opened it up 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then April 5th, we plan to open up City Hall entirely. So the entire building will be open to the public for people conducting and doing business. So that date is April 5th, which is a Monday. As you know, we're going to return in April for commission meetings. So our April 13th meeting will be back in the City Hall Forum. We still will have opportunities for people to participate virtually and through Zoom, but we will be back in the forum and open to the public for the meeting as well. So it's been a long, hard road, but I know we're starting to get back to some sense of normalcy. I don't think we'll ever return exactly the way it was before the pandemic impacted us just a little over a year ago, but I'm glad that we're able to make some inroads and start to get some things back to normal here for our operations. As far as the South Limestone redevelopment, both the corridor and the Kroger project. So on the corridor, we're working with ODOT on the transportation network and made some progress on safety funding for the project, and hope to come to commission with some thoughts on the remaining funding that will be needed to make that project move forward. And then secondly, from the former Kroger site, we have had some exciting developments here over the last couple weeks that I hope will come to fruition very, very soon, and we'll be able to bring some great hope to landing another grocer for the south side of our community.
Great, great news. Thank you. Mark, I was wondering how we were doing financially.
Commissioner, we're doing well. There's not much of a change from the last time I reported, but it appears that March is going along pretty well as far as income tax receipts. Our cash balances remain strong, and so we're in a good place.
Excellent. Thank you.
If someone is unable to make their income tax payment, can they get approved for a postponement?
At this point, we are sticking to the April 15th deadline. There is talk about extending the payment periods for the federal. I assume the state would follow close behind that, and we would be mandated to, by ORC, to extend our deadline also. But if folks are having trouble making their payments, we are certainly willing to work with them to establish a payment plan and hopefully limit their hardship in that instance.
Okay. Anybody else? That concludes our agenda. We're going to have an executive session, correct? Can we go ahead and go into that now, or do we need to wait?
No, we can move to have a motion to go into executive session on personnel.
I move that we do go into executive session for personnel.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Cropland.
Yes. Where are we going to meet for that, Brian?
You can stay in your conference room, and then for Joyce and Dave, there is another Zoom link that Regina sent out